I wasn't holding the controller. I want to say that again, because it matters. My hands were nowhere near it. I was sitting on a rock about 40 feet above a harbor, eating a sandwich, half watching this little drone hover somewhere above my head like a lazy insect. And then, out of absolutely nowhere, a fishing boat cuts through the water below, kicks up this perfect wake, and slides directly under a rusted iron bridge just as the afternoon light hits it at the exact angle you'd beg for in a location scout. I didn't touch a single button. I didn't even look up from my sandwich until it was already gone. That night, back at my apartment, scrubbing through the footage on my laptop, I found it. A cinematic, slow-motion, perfectly framed shot of a boat crossing under a bridge captured from an angle I never once pointed a lens toward. I sat there for a solid 10 seconds, just staring at the screen, genuinely confused about how that clip existed. If you'd shown me that shot a year ago and told me no human aimed the camera for it, I would have told you that you were lying to me. So today, I'm not giving you a spec sheet. I'm not reading you numbers off a box. I'm telling you what 6 months of daily real-world use with this drone actually looks like, the parts that impressed me, the parts that genuinely annoyed me, and the one thing near the end of this video that I think you'd regret missing if you clicked away early. Stay with me, because it's worth it. The mindset shift. Here's something nobody warned me about before I made this switch. This drone doesn't just change your footage. It rewires how you think while you're standing there flying it. Picture a normal drone flight for a second. You're running this constant, low-grade mental checklist the entire time you're in the air. Is the horizon level? Is my subject actually centered? Did I get the shot? Or do I need to circle back and try again? Is the light hitting the wrong side of the frame? That mental overhead is genuinely exhausting, and most people don't even clock how much of their attention it eats up until it's suddenly gone. With this drone, that entire checklist just evaporates. You launch it, you let it fly wherever feels natural, and you stop thinking about composition altogether because you're not making creative decisions in the air anymore. You're just gathering raw material. The real directing happens later, at your desk with a coffee, where you get to calmly decide what the shot should have been all along. That might sound like a minor convenience. It isn't. It fundamentally changes your relationship to the moment you're in. Instead of being a nervous camera operator terrified of missing the one good take, you become a participant first and an editor second. You get to actually enjoy the ski run, the beach afternoon, the road trip, instead of white-knuckling a controller the entire time, convinced you're about to blow the only usable shot of the day. I'll be honest, I was skeptical of this idea when I first read about it. Fly now, direct later sounded like a marketing slogan dreamed up in a boardroom, not something that would actually hold up once real life got involved. 6 months later, my answer is an unqualified yes. It's not a gimmick, it's a genuinely different way of experiencing the act of filming, and once you've felt it. Going back to a traditional drone feels almost claustrophobic by comparison, but philosophy is cheap, and I know it. So let me walk you through 3 real stories that prove this point far better than I ever could just talking about it in the abstract. Story 1. The mountain. Story 1 takes us to a snowboarding trip earlier this year. If you've ever tried filming yourself on a mountain with a drone, you already know the nightmare. You're moving fast, unpredictably, carving down a slope the drone can barely keep pace with, and you basically get one clean pass before you're out of frame entirely. With a traditional setup, that usually means multiple runs, multiple frustrated hikes back up the lift line, and a nagging feeling that the shot isn't worth the hassle it's costing you. This time, I didn't bother with any of that. I launched the drone, rode my normal line down the mountain exactly like I would if the camera weren't even there, and just let it capture whatever it captured. No repositioning, no second guessing, no stopping halfway down to check the angle. When I got back to the lodge that evening and pulled up the footage, I found options I genuinely didn't know I had: sweeping wide shots of the entire ridgeline, tight low-angle passes that looked like they came from a ski film, and one completely unplanned moment where another rider crossed my path in the background. That single clip, the one I never once tried to frame, ended up becoming the most watched piece of footage from the entire trip. That's the part that still gets me, months later. This drone doesn't just save you time on a shoot, it hands you possibilities you didn't even know existed, and discovering them afterward feels less like editing and more like unwrapping a gift you forgot you'd bought for yourself. Story 2. The harbor. Story 2 brings us back to where we started this video: the boat, the bridge, the shot I never aimed for. I want to slow down and actually unpack this one, because it genuinely rattled me a little. I wasn't trying to film a boat. I had no idea one was even coming. I was just letting the drone hover nearby while I ate lunch, controller resting on the rock beside me, completely checked out mentally. The boat appeared out of nowhere, slid under that bridge, and was gone in maybe 8 seconds. With a traditional drone, that moment simply doesn't exist unless you you happen to have the lens pointed in precisely the right direction at precisely the right second, which statistically is almost never. You'd have to predict boat traffic, position yourself with surgical precision, and nail the framing live, all while trying to enjoy your actual lunch. It's an unreasonable ask, and that's exactly why that kind of shot almost never makes it into anyone's footage. With this drone, none of that mattered, because the camera is quietly capturing everything, in every direction, at all times. I stumbled onto that boat shot completely by accident later that night, scrubbing through hours of footage half paying attention, and it went on to become one of the most commented clips I've ever posted online. People kept asking how I planned it, how I timed it, what settings I used to predict the boat's path. The honest answer is that I didn't do any of that. I got lucky, and the drone was simply always watching. I think that's the most interesting part of this entire story, and it's the moment that convinced me this technology isn't a novelty, it's a fundamentally different way of capturing the world. Story 3. The Backyard. Story 3 is a little different in tone, and it's less about cinematic footage and more about something I genuinely didn't see coming: how social this drone turned out to be. I brought it out to a backyard gathering one evening, mostly out of habit at this point, expecting to grab a few casual clips and move on with the night. Instead, it became the entire centerpiece of the evening. Everyone wanted a turn flying it. Everyone wanted the headset on their face. What started as "let me get a couple shots" for later turned into almost an hour of my friends taking turns piloting, laughing, genuinely enjoying themselves with a piece of camera gear, which, if you think about it, almost never happens with equipment. Nobody's ever excited to borrow your tripod or your lens filters, but a device that lets you see the world through its eyes? That's an entirely different experience, and I'll get into exactly why that hits so differently a little further into this video. The editing reality. Alright, let's get into the part of this process nobody likes to talk about honestly, the actual editing workflow. Because a review that skips this isn't giving you the full picture. Here's the concern I had going in, and I think it's a completely fair one. Doesn't shooting in 360 just push the work down the road instead of removing it? You're not skipping the framing decision, you're just delaying it, right? And to be fair, that's partially true. Every single clip needs to be reframed using the companion editing software or the mobile app before it's a normal, shareable video that fits a standard screen. The first week was genuinely rough, and I won't pretend otherwise. The interface takes real time to get comfortable with. Keyframing camera movement felt clumsy and unnatural at first, and I produced more than a few clips that came out shaky and amateurish because I was pushing the virtual camera around way too aggressively. If you've never touched 360 footage before, budget yourself an actual learning period. Don't expect to feel like a professional on day one, because you won't. But here's what completely changed my perspective on the whole process. Once that learning curve flattens out, which took me roughly 2 weeks of consistent use, reframing a single clip takes somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. Compare that to the alternative on a traditional drone, where missing your shot means redoing an entire flight, which can eat up an entire afternoon. Or, in the case of that ski run, means losing footage you can't easily go back and recreate at all. When you actually tally the time saved across dozens of flights over months, the math swings heavily in favor of the 360 workflow, even once you factor in every minute of editing overhead. There is one genuine frustration I still deal with, and I want to be upfront about it rather than bury it. The editing software occasionally chugs when you're working with high-resolution footage on a laptop that isn't particularly powerful. If your machine is a few years old, expect noticeable slowdown during preview and render stages. It isn't a deal breaker for me personally, but it's a real limitation, and I'd genuinely rather warn you now than have you discover it 3 files deep into a frustrating edit session at midnight. The headset experience. Now let's get into my favorite part of owning this drone, and honestly, I think most reviews out there completely undersell this: the immersive piloting headset. Putting these on for the first time is a strange, almost dreamlike sensation. You're not just watching a video feed from the drone anymore, you're inhabiting it. You can turn your head freely, glance left, glance right, look straight down at the ground rushing beneath you, and the drone just keeps flying its actual path completely independent of wherever your head happens to be pointed. Your eyes become a separate camera from the drone's real flight line, and that sounds like a small technical footnote until you actually experience it, at which point it becomes disorienting in the best possible way. I've put roughly 15 or 16 different people into this headset over the last 6 months. Friends, family, coworkers, people who have genuinely never touched a drone controller in their entire lives, and the reaction is almost identical every single time without fail. There's this 2 or 3 second pause of total silence, and then this involuntary involuntary laugh or gasp, like their brain is scrambling to catch up with what their eyes are insisting is real. I've watched people physically duck when the drone passed near a tree branch, even though they were sitting perfectly safely on solid ground the whole time. That's genuinely how convincing this immersion is. And here's the part that actually matters if you're weighing whether to buy this thing yourself. I let almost every single person I introduced this to try flying it using the motion-based controller, and not one of them crashed it. Not a single crash, out of 15 or 16 complete beginners. The motion control system works on an aim-based principle. You simply point your body toward where you want the drone to travel, and it goes there. It strips away nearly the entire traditional learning curve that scares people away from drone piloting in the first place. If you've ever wanted to introduce someone to flying who's been intimidated by dual joysticks and complicated stick inputs, this is genuinely the easiest entry point I've come across in years of doing this. The honest flaws. Okay, time for me to stop being a fan for a few minutes and just give you the unvarnished truth, because you deserve that before you spend your own money. Flaw number 1. Battery life. With the standard battery pack, you're looking at roughly 22 to 24 minutes of actual flight time. Upgrade to the extended battery, and you'll stretch that closer to the high 30s. But that added capacity also means added weight, so you're constantly trading portability against endurance, no matter which option you pick. If you've spent time with some of the longer endurance traditional drones on the market, you will absolutely notice this difference. I catch myself watching the timer more than I'd like to admit, and if you're planning a full day of shooting, you need to budget for multiple batteries and factor in real swap time between flights. It isn't a deal breaker, but it's a genuine limitation, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise just to sell you on this thing. Flaw number 2, low light performance. I touched on this briefly earlier, but I want to be direct about it here. This drone wants good, strong light to do its best work. Overcast afternoons, dusk, indoor flying. Anything with compromised lighting conditions produces noticeably softer, grainier footage than you'd get in full daylight. If you're the kind of creator who lives for that moody golden hour or blue hour aesthetic, specifically because of low light, you're going to feel somewhat limited here. It's not unusable in dim conditions. It's simply not where this sensor performs at its best. Flaw number 3, storage costs sneak up on you fast. Filming in high-resolution 360 generates enormous file sizes, and I mean genuinely enormous, far beyond what most people expect walking into this. If you fly regularly, you'll chew through memory card capacity and hard drive space far quicker than you'd anticipate. And that's a hidden ongoing cost that never shows up on the price tag while you're standing in a store deciding whether to buy one of these. Flaw number 4, and honestly, this might be the most important one on the entire list. The price point puts this drone squarely against some serious competition in the broader 360 camera and drone market. If you're purely comparing spec sheets line by line, there are cheaper ways to get into 360 aerial footage. What you're actually paying a premium for here is the complete ecosystem, the motion controller, the headset, the whole experience layer built around the core hardware, and whether that premium is worth it to you depends entirely on how much you value the experience itself, not just the raw footage coming out the other end. I'm telling you all of this not to talk you out of buying it, but because I would rather you walk in with realistic expectations than feel misled by a review that only ever shows you the highlight reel and conveniently skips the annoying parts. Who should skip this drone? So let's be genuinely clear about who should walk away from this drone entirely, because I think that's a far more useful conversation than just telling everyone watching to go buy one. If you're a professional filmmaker who needs razor-precise, perfectly repeatable framing for paying clients, and you simply don't have the spare hours to reframe footage in post-production, a traditional gimbal-stabilized drone is still probably the smarter tool for that specific job. If budget is your single top priority, and you just want the cheapest realistic path into aerial footage, there are more affordable options out there that will get the job done, even if the overall experience is considerably less exciting to actually use. And if you're not willing to invest real time learning a genuinely new editing workflow, the reframing process is going to frustrate you far more than it ever delights you, and you'll end up resenting a purchase that should have brought you joy. But if you're someone who values spontaneity over precision, who wants to actually be present in the moments you're filming instead of stressed about nailing perfect composition in real time, and who gets a little thrill from discovering shots you didn't even know you'd captured, this drone was built specifically for that kind of person. And after 6 full months of daily use, I'm still that exact person every single time I pull it out of my bag before heading out the door. The verdict and call to action. So, 6 months later, With the novelty completely gone and the honeymoon phase long over, do I still genuinely recommend this drone? Yes. Genuinely. Unreservedly. Yes. Not. Because it's flawless, I just spent the last several minutes walking you through exactly where it falls short, and I meant every word of it. I recommend it because it changed something fundamental about how I actually experience the act of filming in the first place. It made me want to fly more often, not less. And that is quite possibly the rarest thing any piece of gear has ever managed to do for me. Most products get boring the second the novelty wears off. This one somehow didn't, and 6 months of near daily use is about as honest a test of that claim as you're going to get from anyone. Now, here's the part I promised you at the very start of this video. The standard bundle runs right around $1,600, and if you want the extra batteries and the carrying case, the Explorer bundle sits closer to $1,900. That's genuinely not a small purchase, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise or invent some fake countdown clock to rush you into it. What I will say is this: given everything I just walked you through about battery life being the real limitation here, if you do decide to pull the trigger, seriously consider springing for the high-capacity battery or the bundle that includes extra batteries right from the start. It'll save you from ordering one separately later out of frustration, like I ended up doing. I'll leave current pricing and links in the description so you can check exactly what's available right now, since retailers do run their own promotions from time to time, and I'd rather you see the real numbers for yourself than take my word for it. If you've still got questions after watching all of this about the editing workflow, the battery situation, the headset experience, anything at all that I covered today, drop them down in the comments below. I read every single one that comes in, and I'll be actively replying throughout the week, so don't hesitate to ask. And if this video genuinely helped you make a decision one way or the other, do me a real favor. Hit subscribe, drop a like on your way out, and share it with anyone in your life who's been quietly curious about getting into aerial filming. It genuinely helps this channel grow more than most people realize. Thanks for sticking with me through the whole thing today. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.